let's give this a whirl. I am joined here by my bird because the second I start speaking and she's not included, she's going to lose her mind. Little bit of housekeeping here. Aside from the bird, this is my first time using this microphone, so apologies if the sound does some weird stuff. Hi. And then as well as that, I am not reading from a script, so it's going to be a little bit all over the place, and I apologize if I'm repeating myself. I'm going to try and really keep things locked in, but seeing as I have a distraction on my shoulder, hi, what do you want? It may be difficult. Alright, so tonight I want to talk really quickly about the nature of queerbaiting, the history of queerbaiting, and byler doubt, how that all kind of ties together. I am a byler. I've been into the pairing for many years. Really got into the pairing and back into my Stranger Things phase in 2022 when season 4 was released. Before that, I was more of a casual fan, but I did watch the show when it first came out, and I've been following it since it came out. My genuine thing is that at this point it's either happening or not, and there's nothing you can do to change it. It's set in stone, so I don't know why all of you want to be miserable until the inevitable moment arrives. Like, genuinely let go and enjoy yourself. It's not a competition. That is from Supercut Byler on Twitter. I saved that because, yeah, it basically kind of encompasses how I've been feeling lately. I think we're taking this very seriously, and it's fair. This is big for a lot of people. However, there is a point to be made, which is that everything has already been completed. Filming is done. Promos are have started. However we feel about the promos isn't going to change. They're not going to go back in and delete scenes or remove scenes. They're not going to add new scenes, and they're done. Production is done. So we can hope for the best. We can hope that we get what we want, but ultimately we just have to wait and see. I'm sure you've all seen the meme, "The lion does not concern himself with byler doubt." And yes, sure, I enjoy that meme, and I enjoy the sentiment behind it. I think that we should all be uplifting each other and trying to make each other feel hopeful and embraced by the community. I don't think that fandom spaces are not a place for overwhelming negativity to start. Obviously, a lot of them get to that point, but that is not the intention and the purpose behind having those spaces. I think that there is a need to recognize that having doubt in the pairing, going fully canon, doesn't necessarily mean anything negative. A lot of the older side of the fandom have now lived through multiple stages of queerbaiting with other mainstream media, and once you've been burned a bunch of times, it's hard to get 100% on board with something like this actually happening. If any of you were into Sherlock as it was airing, I'm sure that you are familiar with Johnlock and its fate, but I would like to kind of draw some attention to TJLC, or the Johnlock conspiracy, which was basically the biggest overwhelming theory of Johnlock within the fandom. And there were a lot of divides between people who believed in TJLC and people who didn't, and there were a lot of intricacies that went into that, but one of the big points I want to hit is that TJLC had a lot of different sub-theories, and they heavily relied on analysis of the text, analysis of the subtext, things that the actors said, things that the writers said, and basically every little bit of queer baiting within the show, or outside of the show, really, was taken as being a hint rather than being queer bait. Which at face value, if you haven't been queer baited before, seems like, yeah, if John and Sherlock are going on these, like, dates and people are thinking they're a couple, doesn't that seem like a hint that things are going to go that way? But if you are well versed with how queer baiting goes, generally, you know that it was all kind of a game. Now, to be fair, I was part of the fandom at the time, and there was a lot of argument for how they could end up together. And if the writers hadn't been such cowards, they absolutely could have done this. But ultimately, again, it was a game for them, and they didn't bring that to fruition. You could say that John Locke shippers were delusional and not looking at the bigger picture. She's going to interrupt me 7,000 times. You could say that John Locke shippers were delusional, not looking at the bigger picture, but at the time, a lot of people felt 100% certain that this was going to happen and were crushed when it was not. And I worry for some of the people who feel 100% certain that byler is going to become canon, that amount of certainty is going to crush them if we don't get canon byler. I'm not saying that's going to happen. It's just one of my concerns, and I do think it's something that, being the fact that this is media, we have to keep that somewhere in the back of our heads. The next thing I want to draw some attention to is a more recent example of queerbait, which was Destiel. In 2020, Supernatural came to its end. The 15th season of the show aired, and in episode 18 out of 20, Castiel, in an attempt to save Dean's life, confesses his love to Dean, and then immediately dies before Dean has a chance to confirm or deny whether or not he feels the same way. This was huge for the Supernatural fandom, mainly because, unlike with John Locke, where a lot of people thought that maybe this would actually happen, I don't think a lot of people at the time really thought that Destiel would become canon. And to be fair, it wasn't fully canon, but it was this, like, weird kind of ambiguous state. And for the fandom, it was kind of this weird in-between of, like, do we celebrate or do we get angry about it? Ultimately, I think we kind of landed somewhere in between, which makes sense. This was also in the midst of the U.S. presidential election, so there was a lot of chaos going on. So this vague half-canon ending for the two is something that I also fear could happen with future pairings, including Mike and Will. The trope of having a character die, especially a queer character, before giving them a positive ending is very common, as well as, obviously, this trope being kind of an out for the writers to potentially have us see Will confess how he feels, and then for whatever reason, we never find out how Mike feels. Basically just a continuation of season 4. I don't think that this would be satisfying at all. I think that we either need to see Mike reciprocate or not, but we can't just be left in the dark. That would absolutely be queer baiting. I know there's some argument as to whether or not what's been done already is queer bait. I'll leave it up to you. I think that thus far we have been queer baited, and if they don't do anything about it, it will definitively be an example of queer bait. But if they don't have us confirm Mike's feelings, we can say this is going in the wiki article under queerbait. It's going to be right up there with Destiel and John Luck. History tends to repeat itself, though I hope this season serves to kind of break that cycle. At the end of the day, I don't think byler not being endgame will break the fandom apart. I think, again, a lot of people are going to be very, very sad and very hurt, but ultimately, fandoms do survive. And we see that with John Locke, we see that with Destiel, that these fandoms are still alive, definitely smaller than they were at the time, but people still love the characters, people still love the pairing. Which brings me kind of to my next point, which is that we don't have to have canon pairings to enjoy the pairing itself. This is very different from the need for representation and the need for positive representation. This is all from a lens of enjoyment. We don't need a pairing to be on-screen canon for us to still enjoy it. And I know some people prefer it that way. I come from a side of fandom where 90% of the pairings that I enjoy are not canon and never will be canon. Huge fan of Drary. Have been for 15 years. I know, and I knew going into it, that Drary was never going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Same with Lord of the Rings. There are a lot of Lord of the Rings pairings that are very popular, and there's no expectation that those are going to happen either. The books have long since finished being published. Same with the movies. Of course, we have like our little spin-offs and stuff, but Sam and Frodo aren't actually going to kiss. You guys know that. Most people know that. That's been done. There still is fanfiction being published of the two of them, and there will continue to be fanfiction published of the two of them for a long time. People are not going to stop loving that pairing. We don't need to see it on screen for it to still mean something. Again, not saying this because I want to discourage anybody. I want to see it on screen. I want to see it on screen so bad that I'm sitting here alone in my room feeling psychotic about it. I need to see this. But then I have to remind myself that I don't actually need to see it. I really want to see it. But at the end of the day, I will survive. I've made it through multiple stages of queerbait before, and you will survive too. We are 30 days out, actually. We're refreshing the timer now, because I think we might be at 29 days, guys. Goku's getting excited about it. We are officially in the 20s. 29 days and 22 hours at this time of filming until Stranger Things 5 comes out. There's been a lot of worry online that the GA is going to start trickling in, which is true. They're already coming. Which brings me to my last point. We are going to have to deal either way with the general audience's reception to not only Will, but Mike's reaction to Will, and whether or not byler is canon on screen. We already got to see how a lot of people feel about Will, and it's very disheartening. And I think that also plays into this feeling that we can't express doubt because the outsiders are already so strongly against us that we need to stay united and we need to stay together constantly. I agree. I think that we should support each other and uplift each other 100%. How the general audience responds to this pairing potentially becoming canon and us seeing a queer couple in a very mainstream piece of media cannot break us, because people are going to be mean. People have already been mean. And for anyone who's been around for a long time in this fandom, you already know how cruel people can be. Basically just how everyone is on the show that has bullied Will. That's how people are in real life, unfortunately. We haven't grown past that in a lot of ways. We are going to see a lot of people say that this came out of nowhere. We're going to see a lot of people say that it's being forced. None of those things are true. Obviously, if you have any semblance of media literacy, you know that Will has been coded to be queer since the beginning. It was only in season 4 that it was confirmed, but it's been there. And just kind of reckon with the fact that this is a big secret that not a lot of people know. We all know. The general public is pretty fucking stupid. I've worked in service for a long time. I was a veterinary technician up until last week. Look me dead in the eyes. I can't. The general public is my worst enemy. So the fact that this thing that is so precious to me, I have to share it with those idiots, it's very upsetting. And I know a lot of you feel the same way. We're in this together. Whatever happens, we have each other. And this is why we need to not be tearing each other down. If we are feeling doubt, you can say, hey, bud, I get it. I know that. Let's check out these fucking memes together. Let's watch this Byler compilation again. Because at the end of the day, it's all about enjoying ourselves. I am so excited for season 5. I have been... Every person in my personal life probably hates me, because every single day it's, hey, guess how many days until Stranger Things? I've got a chain hanging on my wall. I've got my timer that I look at every day. The trailer should be coming out in the next couple of days, which is very exciting, and I'm sure will spark a lot more discussion. When the trailer comes out, this is when everyone's saying the GA is really going to be in our spaces, and I do anticipate that. So, in the meantime, everybody stay strong. We all have each other. Let's just live it out together and have a great time. I am about to tune back into the 20-hour long now live stream from Hawkins Happenings. That's been wild. I'm sure nothing's going to happen while I'm tuned in, but it'll be background noise while I work on some other projects. If you want to see more from me, I'm sure I'll be around. If not making videos, making weird shit on Twitter, you can follow me at the same username, Stanley Urine. And I hope that everyone here has a wonderful night, day, wherever you're at. Keep it chill. Keep positive. I can't say that if you hope enough we'll get Byler, but if you are hopeful enough, we'll have a great time. And I'll see you next time.
We can do anything. And this, while it's not going to be easy, and while some of us will suffer great losses, ultimately, we will come out stronger, we will come out better, and we will come out more united than we have ever been before.